For this video, I want to speak about how I see that martial arts is like an antique. I see that through time, so many things have changed. I mean, back in the day, 1970s, around the time of Bruce Lee, martial arts was really not, much known in America, and it was a big deal back then. But now, so many things have changed, and you see the technology and the changes of technology. Like back then, they used to have like big televisions that were black and white. Now it's like flat screen televisions with like HD, quality, and then like Blu-ray. Back then, there was like typewriters. You know, now it's just like these computers and then these laptops, and like the speed of the computers have increased so much. These computers used to be like really big, but now they're really small. Back then they'd have like, like a telephone with a line. Then it became cordless, and then they started to have cell phones, and then now they got internet on the cell phones. Back then there was no internet. Now there's internet. I mean, just so many different things have changed. Back then they used to have records, and then it turned into like tape players, and then it turned into CDs, and now, then there's MP3s. It's just a digital file. So you see how many things have changed. You look at the firearms nowadays. Back then, they'd have like single shot, like, rifles, and then it turned into like revolvers, and then it turns into automatics, and now there's like, semi-automatics and then automatics. You know, so many things have changed in just the course of like 40, 50 years. And like martial arts is like trying to retain the things of the past that may not be too relevant for today. Like it's just something where there's a small segment of the population where they appreciate, um, things of the past. Maybe a collector, like a collector of certain things where, you know, he's got the old guns and then he has new guns. He has the new cell phone, but then he has the old phones. Somebody that has the new cars and then the old cars. It's like martial arts is something that where it's like an appreciation for the past development and the history and just the various different weapons, from like the swords and the katanas and the bow and arrow and the nunchucks and the bow staff, and these weapons that may not be too practical for today, but were relevant in the past. And just even like unarmed combat is really not too relevant for today, when you got so many people that are using firearms and using knives. It's like the martial arts has almost become irrelevant for modern day. Even as a way of making money, it's been progressively getting harder and harder to make money from the martial arts. Back then in the 1970s, Bruce Lee and Van Damme and Chuck Norris and Steven Seagal and these actors were able to make money off of martial art films and the presentation of their abilities. But nowadays they don't even need martial artists for that anymore. Jackie Chan was showing, hey, we'll use stunt doubles for that, or we'll use stuntmen, and then the use of like computers with movies like Batman and Spider-Man and X-Men, and these movies are using computer technology to display physical techniques and abilities. Um, so many things have changed that now martial artists aren't even needed for Hollywood. Martial artists, are so it's like harder and harder for martial artists to make money, and then now, they're kind of just using people that practice martial arts, using them as forms of entertainment to fight one another, in competition. A martial artist may adapt to become a boxer, or go into WrestleMania, or go into cage fighting, or to try to find a way to make money from fighting. But you see that the relevancy of martial artists out there, it's not even a relevant way to make money, and it's something where it's not even practical for survival as far as the techniques are concerned, because what is practical is the use of firearms as a way of self-protection. So martial arts inevitably has to be transformed as a way of like increasing your health. You know, exercise is extremely relevant and important, not just today, but even in the past, and not, it's even more important today than it was in the past, because in the past people were more active. You got people that would actually hunt for their own food, but nowadays we don't hunt for our own food. And then there'd be more manual labor, and people would go to work and they'd get their exercise from the work that they do. People would ride around horses, and they'd be tending to their farms and hunting and gathering, and these activities required a lot of physical labor and energy. And then the result is that people didn't really have to set a time aside to exercise, because their way of making a living was a part of their everyday exercise. But today, people are just simply sitting in front of computers all day and driving cars everywhere, using escalators and elevators, and they're becoming more and more inactive, to the point where 3/4 of the population has become pretty much obese, and obese or overweight. So martial arts comes into relevancy in the point of where it can be a fun way of people, for people to exercise. Like, rather than just doing something like P90X or Taibo or Zumba, people are actually practicing martial art techniques as a way of exercise that could essentially become a work of art, or essentially a tool for survival purposes during certain circumstances. So martial arts comes into relevancy as far as fitness development is concerned. It also comes into relevancy as far as developing a strong intellect, being able to remember certain techniques and certain forms, and developing your intelligence, like how a scientist would develop his intelligence through experimentation. So learning the science of combat and trial and error, and just basically understanding concepts, scientific concepts, could really sharpen a person's mind and mental development. Martial arts also comes into relevancy as far as developing compassion from within, and love and meditation, and a healthy, better way of living, in a way of where people would try to turn towards religion for that. People that practice martial arts and become martial artists use martial arts as a vehicle of spiritual enlightenment. So martial arts today, in modern day, has become relevant for those purposes, but not really relevant for making an immense amount of money, or even relevancy as far as physical protection is concerned. Physical protection is more about using firearms and modern technology as a way of survival. So I see that through time, there's just less and less people in the population that actually practice the martial arts, as a lifestyle. There's a few people in this population that I see that appreciate that. Just like, you're not gonna find that many people out there that have such a love for cars that they're gonna be so into cars of the past, or just ways of the past, where they're collectors of antiques, and they appreciate, the ways of the old, or maybe even of tradition. So the whole entire aspect of the martial arts, it doesn't just incorporate the modern, but it incorporates everything of the past as well, and it comes all together as one. And somebody that really does truly appreciate the martial arts will basically gain an appreciation for every single aspect, from the past to the present, and really, I see that the spirit of the martial arts needs to be kept strong, you know, in which to hold up to the values. And even though, people can competitively fight for money and attention and fame, it doesn't mean that somebody that practices the martial arts will go towards that path, because there's a certain integrity that a martial artist must live up to, and people that really appreciate the teachings of the martial arts and the spiritual aspects of the martial arts and the way of meditation will know the true way, and how to express the martial arts with integrity.